Hi, this is Paul, and welcome to the first in a video series of interviews that I'm going to be sharing with you over the coming weeks and months, specifically designed to talk about what it means to live a purpose-driven life. Now, there are two reasons why I'm very excited about this interview series. One is because purpose is a topic that I am extremely passionate about. If you've been following my work for any time at all, you will have known that I believe purpose to be the glue that holds together the happiness and fulfillment that we look for in our lives. And the second reason why I'm excited about this is because I'm going to get to talk to some very cool, awesome, inspiring people that are already living from a space of authentic purpose in their lives. And I'm absolutely convinced that there's a lot that we can take and be inspired from in those conversations. Now, the first of my guests is Mike Teape, and he falls firmly in that category of not only just being an awesome, inspiring guy, he's a very close personal friend of mine, but someone who has been on their path for a significant amount of time, sorry about that, Mike, to find their life's purpose. And Mike is the founder of an organization called Teape Training International. So Mike is an awesomely talented facilitator, coach and trainer to various organizations across the corporate world. So everything from small organizations to multinational corporations. And he's an intuitive, strategic coach that helps people take their business from where it is now to where they really want it to be in according to their vision. Now, Mike has an absolute gift for being able to cut right to the heart of the chase in what are the shifts that need to be made. And I know that that's something that Mike is particularly passionate about. So outside of his business, Mike lives with his wife in the States, in the United States of America, with their 17-month-old daughter, Emily, and they're due a son in April. Although the verdict for a name is still to be decided. I think Paul is a very good, strong, manly, inspiring name, but I'm sure Mike's got other ideas about that. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Mike. He's an awesome chap. Mike, how the hell are you, my friend?
I'm very good, thank you, Paul, and thank you very much for having me on. I feel honoured that you wanted to talk to me, actually. So it's not often you get asked to talk about your purpose and your life.
Yeah, especially when I get to big you up as well. That doesn't happen too often, does it, my friend? So, so Mike, I alluded to the kinds of things that you're up to in the world at the moment in terms of Teape Training International. But why don't you start off by giving us a bit of wider context of what it is that you do in the world and what it is that you offer your clients?
Well, Paul, what I like to think that I offer my clients is helping them find some solutions to improve the people that they have working for them. And whether that's from a startup company or right through to big behemoth global corporation, I want to provide, it's called business effectiveness skills, really. So that's to help my client give them solutions to help improve their employees. But I see it on two levels. I see it very much on two levels. And I get a lot out of the interaction I have with the people that come on my courses. So it starts at call it a corporate level, if you will, but it goes down to the aha moments that the employees have. So I have two agendas. One is to help the client solve their problems strategically of learning and development and moving their staff forward as a group. And then individually is helping individuals be the best that they can be and take that next step up, be able to see what that step up is and help with purpose along the way. So, I didn't just get here. It was a long journey to even see and explain it in that way.
Yeah, so and that's probably a good lead into I know, and I've experienced your work firsthand, and I know just how much of an awesome coach you are, and also that sense of purpose that you're able to instill in the people that you train and coach. But as you've mentioned, it didn't happen overnight. There was a bit of a backstory in how it got to be that you found your purpose and some of the courageous steps that you needed to take to get to be someone who gets to do the work that they love. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that backstory, Mike?
Well, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and it's been almost 20 years. You were kind enough not to mention how old I am, which I appreciate. But I would say that purpose develops over time. What I defined as purpose is different now than it was 7 years ago, and then it was 10, oh God, 13 years ago, and definitely when this story all began, when I really came out of university
Mm.
back in '96 is when I came out of university, even before that. And I was very lucky that I didn't have a direction back then. And to be honest, direction and purpose is not something an early 20-year-old person is going to think about. Really, it's, well, how do I set myself up to be as successful as possible?
Mm.
And very few of them would say, this is my purpose and direction. You'd probably find a handful, one or two you might meet. If you can all, if everyone in your audience to think back to the years that whatever schooling there was, it's probably one or two individuals that were like, this is my direction, this is my purpose. And are usually focused around entrepreneurialism.
Mm.
So
So, how would you describe where you were at that time? Because every journey has a beginning point, and it has, where we're at now. So, if you weren't focused on purpose, what were you focused on at the time? Keep it clean.
do you want me to answer that honestly, mate? Because it was, what do 20-odd-year-old men think about, or boys, I should say, think about? That was all I was thinking about.
Certainly not what you're going to be
to
doing
be
by the time you're 20 years further down the line. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a very different focus now. But back then, it was very much, well, I've got to pass this education or to get a job to be able to afford the things I want to buy, and that's my purpose. I want to have a nice flat somewhere cool. Want to have some nice clothes, and the car would be nice, and going out drinking, and that refines over time, doesn't it? And that's using very materialistic things. But let's be honest, that's what we look at. So there's the purpose for me. Completing my degree is in order to finance the future I would like to have, and that was me. I was no entrepreneur. I had no vision. I had no aha. That was me, and making sure that I passed the course. What happened was, though, and we had a year out, a work placement year, and it could be anywhere. It's very general, and I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. So, like all good sons, my father stepped in, set up a great interview with an HR director in London, and she went on to be my mentor for many years. Fantastic lady, purely by chance. And I was going to take phone calls for a travel firm, make bookings, reserve holidays in Italy and Spain. And great, great. It pays the bills, be a bit of fun, get a bit of work experience. But during the interview, this HR director had the insight to stop the interview and say, well, we do have a different opportunity. And that opportunity is to work with one of our very experienced supervisors creating a training team to provide the training for all the reservation staff. And I went, yeah, right. That sounds good. Certainly sounds better than sitting on a phone all day long, taking a number of calls you have to make. Okay, great. So I started work, and I shared a wooden desk with one push-button phone, no computers, and we provided brochure training to these reservation staff. So that's how I got started. And looking back now, pure chance. It's the world, fate, call it what you will. So I kind of fell into it. After I finished my degree, finished my degree, I was invited back and took on a much bigger role. So I did some training, a lot of personnel for the whole company. And they were, very enjoyable days, but mindset, pay the bills, buy yourself a nice flat. In fact, and not far from where you are, Kingston upon Thames, I did actually buy a flat down by one of those nice places down by the river.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that fate sometimes conspires to give us, an opportunity, and we're not entirely sure why we get that opportunity, but it changes something for us, doesn't it? And I know certainly by the time I met you a few years later, you were obviously still on that path, and I met somebody that was extremely passionate and that was extremely purpose-driven and very skillful at what you did. And I would say that my impression of you in those early days was, here is somebody that I'm inspired by, because there seems to be something deeper than just what you do for a day job. So when did the purpose side of it kick in for you?
Well, I was lucky enough to come move down to the south coast, and again, I got what they call a job of the lifetime, working as a training consultant for a major banking institution, a global one, which I then did for 10 years. But there are moments, I think there are certain moments in life, and they're not one thing, they're not one, well, there are a number of little things, or there could be one big thing. But for me, it was a number of small things that happened. And one of them was actually having a mentor, being able to talk about, being asked good questions. Being asked good questions is so valuable. Well, what are you doing? What does it mean to you? Describing your own words, what you do. What gets you up in the morning? All those cliche type questions are actually make you think. And then also I had a lot of training of being a trainer by then, and I've been exposed to some really fantastic events. I've been lucky enough to get some feedback from participants, and I've noticed a change in me, because when I started at this global bank, it's just about the time I met you actually, because it lasted 2 to 3 years, is I became very incredibly nervous in a much bigger audience, standing up, presenting, training. And most people, this is too hard. And it was very hard. Bright red, stuttered my words, very bad case of nerves. Went on for a couple of years. And I thought, if only I get up in the morning and I dread going to work.
Yes.
I'd be like, oh God, I really wish I had an easy job where I could just sit behind a desk. You know what? I just think I'm going to just design it. But for some reason, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I carried on getting up. I carried on trying to make it better. I'd wear thinner shirts. I'd rehearse a lot. I'd find out where the nerves were, read up about it. And it took me 3 years until I got over that.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think some people faced with an opportunity like that where they get paralyzed by fear about with what they're doing, it would just be the cue to give up. But so what was it about that made you keep going? Because you could have easily changed careers, you could have easily found something that was easier to do, but something was driving you to keep going.
Yeah.
What was that?
And Paul, if I'm really honest with you, it certainly wasn't the nerves, because I'd wake up in the morning and want to, I don't really want to do this today. Oh my God, lots of anxiety. But what happened was, I'd thought, a lot of my courses, I thought I'm delivering, oh my God, this is not very good, I'm not very good at this. And it was only when 1 or 2 participants came up to me after the course, and they, they didn't say, "Oh, Michael, that was fantastic, best training course I've ever had." What I heard was, "Wow, Michael, I've never thought about it like that way." I can see how this is useful to me in my role, and I'm going to go and use this. It's going to help me either get to the next level or understand what I currently do, or to be able to communicate with different areas, different people. And it was that piece that almost put me on a high. I was like, wow, that's really great. Somebody got something out of what I said. It wasn't that bad. The total opposite. And I still find today that when I have that feeling, when I usually feel it hasn't gone at all well, is usually when I get the best feedback.
Yes. Yes.
And that's still true today. But that feeling of, wow, that was really, I didn't realize somebody could get that much out of it, stayed with me. The fact that I helped somebody achieve something and they've taken it, put it in their own words, really meant something to me.
Yeah, and that seems to ring true for so many conversations that I've had with, people on their path of purpose. Is they get to an understanding of what drives them is it's more than me. This isn't about me just doing something to get the cool stuff, to build the life that I can be comfortable in. It usually becomes about some form of outer connection, doesn't it? So let's come forward to today then, Mike. For somebody who's been on the path for 20 years or so, what does purpose mean to you today? So what gets you out of bed in the morning today?
I mean, for me, it's very much the audience reaction, being able to still help people with understanding a concept, or usually when I meet with people, they're downtrodden from day to day. So purpose for me is to be able to see through. If I was to define it for me, very much be able to see through the day-to-day noise that's out there and be able to see the journey that I'm on.
Mm.
And my journey really is to keep up with the trends, emotional intelligence, the happiness at work project, which I'm heavily involved in now. And how is that useful to others? Be able to package that message so other people can understand it, find it useful, and take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still about
Um,
being of service.
yeah, it's about service. It's about delivering a service really to the participants
Mm.
that turn up.
Mm. And
Um,
if I could take you, a level deeper than that. So, I mean, it sounds so inspiring to be in a position where you're offering that great value. But what does that do for you personally to be a guy that is in a position to be able to do that?
I think it's a feeling, really, and it provides you with energy from within.
Mm.
Now, most of you who have children can relate to me, a 17-month-old and another baby on the way. You don't get much energy just given to you on a plate, yeah? But it's surprising when I'm in the moment, and for me, I love being in the moment, interacting with somebody, helping them along their path. And it's actually not about the structures or the training itself. I just have so much more energy, drive, and direction. A calm, day-to-day troubles, small things that's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
They're just small things on the side of the road. And I want to keep doing that. I want to be able to do that to more and more people
Mm.
in order to help them and inspire. But for me, it really, it makes me more curious. I ask better questions. And you know what? I connect with my family and my friends on a whole different level.
Mm.
It's a much deeper connection. I can actually understand people and their interactions. And you probably heard of like the gratitude journals and all other tools. And I know you've talked about it a lot on your website of tools to help us kind of connect with that. And that's what it does for me. It's like, you know what? I'm talking to a certain gentleman who will remain nameless in New York. It's not easy to communicate to at all. It's always about me. Then definitely don't share the purpose, or they're driving too hard.
Yeah.
But what is it about the interaction that I got out of it? And that's what having a purpose and direction allows me the ability to be able to see, you know what, that was a really useful conversation. And the annoying noise, personality and style you can put to one side.
Yeah,
So that's,
so
yeah.
the noise just becomes, it's still there, but it just becomes nowhere near as meaningful as we could perhaps make it if we weren't looking in the right direction. And so, Mike, you've mentioned, the energy, having a 17-month-old daughter and another one on the way, so double trouble soon. Now, I'm curious as to some of the current obstacles and challenges that you face, to live that good path. It's certainly been obvious to me, talking to many people and also from my own experience, that it's a bit of a myth that once you've found your purpose in life, that every day is then just a breeze. It couldn't be further from the truth, and I'm sure that you can contest to that as well. So what are some of the challenges that you still face? Perhaps they're internal, things that you say to yourself, or perhaps there's some of those external things, and how do you overcome those?
I think these days it's very much about, am I living with purpose, to coin a phrase that somebody said once. I think it might have been you. But you do get caught up in the minutia, the day to day, the stuff, the accounting that needs to be done to run a firm, a global firm, the time zones, the admin, all that kind of stuff. That stuff. So you do end up. Am I working on something right now in the next half an hour that helps me continue on my path of purpose, or am I being distracted? And it's okay to be distracted. And I'll give you an example. Is that some work that I do doesn't help my purpose, but it helps another training company or another client achieve something, and that's okay. Yeah, because you still got to pay the bills. Yeah, it's so that's okay as long as you can still come back to it. I struggle with actually spending too much time in the detail and not coming out and looking at the direction again. So getting bogged down in that detail. And of course, 17-month-old children need a lot of attention. They need looking after, and that takes a lot of time out of your day as well. So that, and still keeping up your relationships with your significant others in the world, I find that suffers if I'm busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all of that, I mean, because that's the day-to-day life that could be so easy to distract us and take us off the path, and before we know it, we're miles away from where we thought that we should be. So what kind of strategies do you have to keep yourself on point, to keep going in the right direction, and continue to keep adding that service that you keep adding?
Well, it's small things. It's like I've got a couple of, you can't see it now, but in my office I've got a couple of meaningful quotes that I picked up along the way, which are visually in front of me. It's making sure that your day-to-day, you do have a system or a method for dealing with the day-to-day. So I could write it all down or put it into the computer, and I don't have to think about that. Yeah. But then I also, it's not just a to-do list, it's actually a question. I write down questions for myself. Is I say, have you looked at your purpose or your direction? And for me, it's very much like, what does this mean? Does this contribute or take away from the meaning of Teape Training International? How am I helping? Do I know? Have you checked out the latest development in learning and development online? Yeah. And that's very much all about trying to center yourself with focus. So I try and build it into if I have a list of things to do, why not build in some purpose? List of to-dos in that. The other thing is to make sure I focus on energy, making sure I get out for a walk, drink a ton of water. I know it sounds silly, things like that. Making sure you're hydrated, you're healthy, so you're keeping all that kind of. There's three things really that I keep a check on. One is just my work have direction. Two is the relationships around me, the friendships, the partners that I have, the family. Yeah, am I paying that enough attention? It could be a day and a week. And then the last thing is actually personal enrichment. Me, what am I doing for me? Because trainers are almost the worst people for developing themselves, because guess what? They're spending 110% of their time and energy helping develop others.
Yes.
And what about me?
Yeah, and I can completely resonate with what you're saying, Mike. I mean, certainly in the early days when I set up the Life Happens websites, the intention behind that was, as I was teaching it, I was learning it, and I was specifically focusing on the areas to teach that I most needed to learn myself, and that was the basis of how it got going. And you're absolutely right, is that it's one thing to be on a path of purpose and to know what you're all about, but there are so many things that can distract you from that. And like you said, the energy, the demands of other people and the relationships. So having those, very few simple strategies and cues to keep you back on point are just very simple things that you can do to get you back in a centered place. So Mike, we're coming up to the end of the interview. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to see, if somebody was to come up to you and say, Mike, what if you could give me one tip for what it means to live a truly purposeful life, what would you tell me that would be of most valuable to me?
Again, I like my 3-step thing. So I can't just give you one thing.
Give us three then.
One major thing is stop what you're doing, breathe, and look around you. Yeah. What's around me in my surrounding right now? Doesn't matter whether you're on a train, whether you're in a city, in the countryside, wherever it is, at home, in a car, and think about what am I grateful for? It's an old adage, that kind of thing, just to get your mind thinking about bigger things than what you're focusing on right now, like getting to the next appointment. And I find that if you try and relate to people, because we're very social animals, it's trying to relate to other people you meet in your life, whether at work, outside work, on the commuter train, whatever it might be. Try and relate to them, find out a bit more about them. So that leads you to my second one, which is be curious. always be curious, no matter what you do. I do it in the training room. We always have better results when I'm, so what do you mean by that? So I'm interested, why did you say that? Rather than actually trying to answer a question.
Yeah.
And then lastly is really, am I really helping others? That's one of my things that I live by is, am I useful in my purpose and direction? Because if I'm not doing something that's useful, what's the point? And that would be my advice.
Well,
Sorry, it wasn't just one point though.
no, that's all right. You always give you an inch, you take a mile. I know you. So I can completely validate you, Mike. You are utterly useful. You're an inspiration to me and many other people. So before we sign off, if anybody in listener land is interested in how to get in contact with you, the kinds of services that you may be able to offer them, how do they get in contact, and what would your advice be to them?
Best way to get into contact with me is via LinkedIn or via my website. And my website is under development. It is due a relaunch, and it is easily named as www.teapetraining.com. So that's where it is. And you can look me up on LinkedIn. If you Google Michael Teape, there aren't very many in the world. And I will come up there. So you can easily find me there.
Yeah. So everyone, get in contact with Mike. You'll be glad you did. But for now, Mike, it's been a pleasure to have you on the interview. I will catch up with you very soon. But for now, take care, my friend.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.